As you can see, I have several portraits that I added in here. This one is actually when he was jumping, an action shot. This one as well. And this one. So this little guy was in one of my family shoots recently that I did. Well, actually, it was a couple years ago, but it was a model shoot that I did. So I have all the rights to use these photos. So I'm just letting you know that there are 3 different portraits here that I took, as you can see. And from the difference between this one and this one, you can tell this one looks like it's edited, but it isn't. It came straight out of camera. It was just the framing that I did on it. I was a little more up close, and I changed my settings. I probably decreased my aperture and increased my ISO possibly because it's a little bit lighter. Almost too light. But you can see right here that it's a little blown out on the side, but not too bad. So I think I'm going to use this one. I just like it better. So you always want to use the image that has the best in-camera look to it out of all the ones that you take. So I'm going to show you a portrait edit of this little guy. So obviously it's not too dark, and I'm in Photoshop, so it's a little bit different, but some of the settings are the same for Lightroom. So I'm going to filter Camera Raw filter. You only have to do that for Photoshop, not for Lightroom. And then it pulls up all the options here, and they all correspond with these up here. And so you will see that this looks the same in Lightroom. Like Lightroom has all these options as well, usually over here on the side. And then if you go across, you'll see this is the tone curve, and then you've got the details and color adjustments, split toning, you have lens correction, sorry, ignore that. And you've got vignetting, where you can add some vignette. And then I have some effects that I could use. And sometimes I save my settings as an effect, so that way it's really easy to go in and edit all of them to look the same. So anyways, I'm going to look on here, and I'm not going to touch exposure first. And this is just how I would edit. Everybody edits a little differently. And I don't think there's much that needs to be done with the temperature or the tint. So I'm not going to worry about those. And I'm going to go down to contrast. And I am going to play with the slider a little. Usually when you're working with skin tones, you want to bring the contrast down just a little bit, so that way their skin looks a little smoother. Highlights, if I were to increase the highlights, it would blow out a little too much. So I'm just going to leave them the way they are. The shadows, honestly, there's not a lot of shadows in here, but if I go too high, he's definitely blown out. And if I go down, it actually adds some color back in. See how his hair is turning a little bit darker, which is actually more of his natural color. I'm going to bring it down a little bit so it looks a little bit more natural. I'm going to bring my whites down just a little bit too because it's so bright. And my blacks, I'm not going to mess with a lot. I'll just bring them down a little. And you can see right here the sun was shining from this direction up here because he has a line under his chin, and right here is the shadow. And normally we try to not have harsh shadows, but it's not very obvious right here. So texture, you can increase texture. It'll bring lines into his face. Do you see that? His cheeks kind of popped more. But I don't want to do that a whole lot. But I don't want to bring it down too much either because then it looks unnatural. Look how too soft it is. So I am just going to probably just bring it up just a tad, just to show the definition of a smile a little bit more. And the clarity does the same. Well, it's not the same, but it's similar. And if you see I bring it down, it's going to soften his cheeks again to look a little too unnatural. So I don't want to bring it down in this case, but sometimes with skin tones you want to, or actually not skin tones, but to make the skin look smoother, sometimes you want to do that as well. So clarity, you just have to be careful. If I go too high, you see how it really makes him look a little bit too dark in spots, so we don't want to do that. So So you just always want to go from one extreme to the other so you can see what it does, and you can see obviously it's really blowing him out there and blending him in with the background. So I am just going to actually bring it up just a little bit. Again, just to add a little definition because it already was so light and soft. Now the dehaze is fun because look at the difference it makes in this photo. It actually pops, what do I want to say? Pops him off of the background a little better when I bring the dehaze up. So I'm going to do that. See that? See the difference between here, where he kind of gets washed out into the background if you're looking at his face, and then I bring it up and it kind of clarifies him from the background. And the vibrance, honestly, he doesn't need a whole lot of vibrance in here because he's got all this beautiful red on him. But if you were wanting more of a vintage look, you could bring it down like that. It kind of washes it out a little bit. And you don't want to bring it up too high. Look what happens when I bring it high. His cheeks look almost like the color of his shirt. So I'm going to just leave it, maybe bring it down just, nope, I'm going to leave it right there. And saturation, if I brought saturation up, again, it's going to make everything look too red. So yeah, the background looks more green, but I don't want that because it's going to make him look too red as well. Let me try the vibrance again for the background. Nope, it starts to make his cheeks look too red. Okay. So what I could do here is if I want to add the background and make the background more green, I would go over to my colors, and they are called HSL adjustments, hue, saturation, and luminous adjustments, and I am going to go to the green and just try to increase the green. And look, it's not really making a big deal. It's making a little bit, so I think I'll leave that. Let's go to hue and see if I can increase the green a little to here without changing what he looks like. I don't want to change his face a whole lot. Now if he had blue eyes, I'd have to be careful if I was on the blue. Luminous. Let's try luminous. So, you just really want to try different things with your editing and see what you get. Yeah. There, I'm adding a little more green into the back now, but his face is almost looking too red. So I'm going to see if we can take the red down a little. There, that looks a little bit more natural. Good, and I'm going to add a vignette. I will add just a little dark, just to give it a little more dimension, a little contrast. So that is pretty much it on the portrait. Sometimes you can go in if you have a preset or something that you like, and you can add just kind of like, sometimes we do a subtle boost at the end. You can see it makes a little bit of a difference. That one looks nice. But again, I don't think he needs it. So I'm just going to click OK. And then I'm done with that. And then I go over to the action shot, and actually in Photoshop you can go up to filter, camera raw filter, and just hit it at the very top. It'll say camera raw filter instead of down a little, and then it adds the same settings to your next picture. And this one just needs to be cropped a little bit. I need to bring him in a little more. Oh, before I do that, I want to go up here and hit original ratio, and then I want to bring it down. That way I am not making it a weird size in case someone wants to print it sometime. And yeah, there was something in the corner there, so I was going to try to get rid of it. But what I can do over here is go to, where is it? Spot healing brush, and I can make it a little bit larger and increase the hardness, and that way it will take that away. See how it does that? Pretty cool. I can take the leaves out if I want to, anything weird and brown in the picture, and it takes it away, even by his shoe. But then his shoe starts to be funny. There we go. So that is that. And then I'm just going to leave that picture the way it is. Oh, one more thing that I could do. It looks almost like it's a little crooked, and I probably should have thought of that before I cropped it in, but I would straighten it just a little. In fact, let's go back. So I've got to, so Alt Command Z takes you back and takes out, you see how all my little spots are coming back? And there, I'm back to where I was. So cropping, again, original ratio. I don't want to crop. What I want to do is straighten the picture just a little. There you go. I don't want to cut off his fingers if I can help it. There we go. So that's better. I like that. It looks a little more straight. So you always got to make sure your horizons are straight. And look, that took care of our corner right there that we didn't like. I say we, me, that I didn't like. And I'm just trying to, yep, there we go. And that cleaned up our picture. He almost looks a little too red in the face, so Command plus sign will zoom you in. And yeah, he's even a little blurry. Like I wouldn't normally take this picture, use this picture to edit, not because he's a little blurry. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know if he's blurry on this one. A little bit, but not as much. Anyways, you don't want to use blurry picture. But filter, camera raw filter, and I could go here to the color and take a little bit of red out of his face. There we go, that's better. Okay, so that is it. That is editing a portrait in an action shot. I hope that helped, and I will talk to you soon.